How is it that the wealthiest country in the world has such a screwed up healthcare system? After 35 years in the healthcare industry, I decided to retire and share my secrets with you. I'm Chuck Melendi, and this is Disruptive Dialogue. Hello, Disruptors. How you doing today? Chuck Melendi with Disruptive Dialogue, and today is a special day. This will be the third episode in a row that I focus on mental health. As most of y'all know, the last two episodes have featured Roya Tyson, who is the CEO of IBIS Healthcare, which is a community mental health center in Tampa, Florida. But today I have a special guest. It is one of my daughters. Her name is Crosby. She's 27, and she's going to share her journey growing up in a very different world than baby boomers or the Gen X generation, even though she's on the tail end of Gen X. We didn't have, growing up, social media. We didn't have school shootings happening all the time. We didn't have the overload of news and information 24/7 and all these attitudes and judgment every single day. So we're going to delve into this a little bit and make it a little bit real. You're going to get a little insight into my family. And I hope that the younger listeners on here, because it's me, that's a really big group, but hopefully the younger listeners, they'll hear some validation with what you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And I'm also hoping that the parents out there who are listening are able to maybe gain an insight here and there as to what the younger generation is going through, what they're dealing with, and possibly how we can be a part of that. And as Crosby and I talk in this conversation, you're going to hear us talk about our relationship, struggles that we had, what we did right, what we did wrong, and how we can help each other, and we can all get through this. So with that, I want to welcome my daughter. Hey, Crosby, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
Okay, are we ready to do this?
I don't know. We got the wine. We're ready to go. So I think we got this.
Yeah. So as y'all can appreciate, the wine kind of goes with my theme of being retired. But I will also say I think I'm going to need the wine because not only am I going to ask Crosby about her journey with mental health and what that's been like, but also I think we're going to get into mine a little bit. So to everyone who knows me really well, maybe a few things you're going to learn that you didn't know. And for those who didn't, you know what? Look, at the end of the day, my generation, the baby boomers, we didn't know much about this growing up, and we just kicked it to the side. And everybody says, be strong. And I think actually being strong is being open and transparent and sharing with others where you're not strong. And that gives others strength. So hopefully we can go down that road. So Crosby, as I already mentioned, my last two episodes were with Roya, and we went into mental health and the evolution and what's helping and hurting today's society, and got into a little bit of mental health parity. And then obviously, let's make it real. Mm-hmm. And a lot of families are struggling out there every single day. And so I want to thank you for having the courage to come out here and share where you're at. And with that, honestly, when do you think you first started struggling with mental health and just figuring this out and starting that journey?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, like my earliest memory where looking back, I can see what was happening, but in the moment I had no idea that, what was going on. But I think it was 8th grade for me. So I was 13 years old, maybe 14. And I just remember we had just moved back to Tampa. We were living in Atlanta, where I was, I had my best friend next door. We were able to be like super weird and fun together. And then, playing games in the basement and just being just total weirdos, but in the best way. Moving back to Tampa, I kind of got reintroduced to my old friends that I grew up with. And then we went back to the same school that I grew up with. And sort of everyone had grown and changed and had all these new friends, and they had all these memories that I couldn't relate to. And I felt this pressure to like straighten my hair and put makeup on for the first time. And I just felt like, I'm kind of, I don't know, I felt really out of place. So I just started feeling really sad. Like I just had this overwhelming sadness come over me. And it felt like there was no actual reason. I remember feeling like so confused, laying on the couch, like crying. And I was like, why am I crying? Like I remember thinking that. I was like, what is happening? And then, high school came around and I'd say that got a little better. But I know looking back now that I was experiencing some symptoms of depression. But my thing growing up was really anxiety. That was like my issue that even still, you kind of always have to, manage it, and it's like a muscle that you have to continuously exercise in order to manage it. But yeah, throughout high school and college, I'd say the anxiety got worse and worse. I mean, there was a lot of ups and downs, and I didn't know what was happening half the time. I just felt so angry or so this or that, and just so anxious about so much, and it manifested it in so many ways physically, which was the crazy part. I used to think that I had IBS or some kind of, gastrointestinal issues, and it turns out it was all stress induced. Like I had to get a colonoscopy when I was 20 years old.
I remember. I paid for that bill.
But there was all of these physical symptoms that were happening because of the struggles I was going through mentally. And, I really resisted therapy for a long time because I was like, I'm just going to get through this, or I'm going to distract myself by, going to the gym 7 days a week and restricting the amount of food I was eating and being the most high achieving student and person I could possibly be in college. And it was all kind of these distractions, but it was all rooted in anxiety and this need to control. And yeah, like it's sort of been this like thing that I've had to work through forever, or since I guess I was 13. But yeah, that's kind of been my experience. And I will say, like, once I started going to therapy at the end of college, there was a turning point for me in college where I was just like, I have to do something about this. Like, This is not sustainable. And yeah, I decided to give it a shot. And I got really lucky, and I really liked the therapist that my university, had on campus. And it was just so amazing to have him, for the last 2 years of my college experience. And now I've been seeing my same therapist now for 3 years, and she's wonderful. But yeah, it is something that I've just continuously work on. And I definitely feel like I have it under control now. But of course, I still have times that I feel super anxious, but I just kind of know how to manage it better. But it's definitely been like most of my life, more than half my life for sure.
Right. It's been a journey. And so you just took us through about 14 years.
I know.
Really fast, which is cool.
Let me just dump all my stuff.
Dumped it all on, but we're gonna go
You're
back
welcome.
and break it down. So, it's interesting because, baby boomer generation, and I will say to the baby boomers, I apologize, but I hate being a baby boomer. I think we've really screwed our country up and trying to achieve too much and trying to get too much material stuff and everything. But like at the end of the day, it's so crazy that you say, hey, Dad, when we moved back to Tampa, that's when it kicked in. Mm-hmm. And to give everyone perspective who doesn't know my family, my wife and I have been married for 31 years. It's been a rock solid relationship. 2 beautiful girls, have done really well, overachievers in many ways. We moved to Europe, back in 2006 for 2 years. We thought that was a great experience, and it changed, I think, our lives. Then we moved to Atlanta for about 4 years. And my goal in life was to get you back to Tampa before the end of the 8th grade so you could finish elementary school and go to high school with your friends. And little did I know, as much as I was trying, I didn't know that till now. Holy shit.
Oh, stop.
That was a big deal for you. And of course, nobody knew that. And everybody was excited to come back and see our family.
I was
and our
so
friends.
excited.
Of course.
I think it's a big transition. It's big transitions as a kid can be difficult.
It's transitions. And, so one of the things that I definitely want to pull out of all of this is, as we said, we're going to pull it back a little bit, and some of the things that really impacted you both positively and negatively. And then from my perspective, as a parent, what we're trying to do, because yes, kids are struggling today as our parents, to be quite honest, but as a parent, nothing's worse than seeing your kid struggle and not know how to fix it. Mm-hmm. I want to give all the people of your generation some perspective. So I want you to open up your laptop real quick.
Okay.
Yes. She doesn't know why, but I told her to bring her laptop and she can connect to the internet. So my generation and what we knew about mental health is, you know what, suck it up, buttercup. Don't show weakness and you're fine. And the movie that really defined mental health when I was growing up was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Jack Nicholson. And it was like they were in a state mental health institution and everybody's crazy in there. I mean, and they're really exaggerated, but the stigma was so bad that your mom and I were in Colorado and we went to the house that The Shining, the famous movie The Shining, was shown in, and Stephen King is the author. And they said that Stephen King did not want, the producer wanted Jack Nicholson to star in The Shining, and he was perfect. Stephen King, the author, did not want him to be the star because One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest had just come out, and he was a crazy person. And Stephen King's like, I don't want a crazy person being the star of my movie. Oh my God. That's the freaking stigma. Yeah. That was just a movie, right. and he didn't want it. But do me a favor, because one of the treatments, and this is back in the 50s, but still, I knew about this. Pull up lobotomy. Okay. Tell all the listeners, what's a lobotomy and what's it used for in the past?
Well, I just searched lobotomies and mental health. And it says here, lobotomy, a now largely discredited neurosurgical procedure, was once used to treat severe mental illness, including schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and severe depression. It involved severing connections in the frontal lobe of the brain with the aim of reducing symptoms of mental illness. Significant personality changes, cognitive impairments. Wow.
So that when I was growing up, you're thinking, oh my God, I don't want to get a lobotomy. They're going to cut my head open and take away a part of my brain. So kids.
Yeah.
And when I say kids, I'm talking like young 30s, 20s, and teens. This is what, I'm 60. This is what was in our hardwiring of why you do not want to tell people that you're not feeling right. And so that was just for perspective for everybody, which is kind of mind-blowing. And I don't think many of your...
No. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, lobotomy, okay?
That's intense.
If I said, admit you don't feel right and you're mentally, they're going to cut your head open and take apart part of your brain. You're not going to tell anybody. So, we have come a long way from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Let's talk about our relationship and what Mom and I did well, because this is for the parents out there, and maybe what we could have done better. Because I'll never forget, I'm not going to get into our screaming matches, that's coming, but I'll never forget, I told you one time, I've never had kids. I don't have an owner's manual. I am doing the best I can flying by the seat of my pants. And it is absolutely true. And, what did we do right? And what could we have done better?
Well, that's a hard question.
Yeah,
I mean, you guys seriously, I could not have asked for better parents, a better upbringing. I mean, I feel truly so blessed for just the way that we were raised. But, I always talk about this, you can do all the therapy in the world. You can unpack all of your childhood trauma and do all this work, and you're still going to screw your kids up one way or another. It's going to happen. I'm going to do it. I'm not some over-evolved person that I'm my kids are going to, have no trauma and whatever. It just is what it is. And we're all doing the best with what we have and what we've learned growing up from our parents. I mean, this is a trickle-down effect, but that's why I think it's so important to have these conversations and why I'm so happy that it is becoming more normalized and the stigma is getting less and less, because the more we talk about this, the more that we destigmatize it, the better off we are as a society, and we can kind of break these sort of generational patterns that may be toxic or whatever they are. But I think with you guys, I think what comes to mind first is just one of the best things that we had in our household was we just had a culture of dialogue. We were very open with each other. I at least have always felt like I could come to you or Mom or Ansley, my sister, for anything that I was going through. And I am a very open person by nature. Like, I don't have a problem with opening up, but there was always this sort of culture of acceptance within the house. And I never felt like afraid to open up to you guys. And, we always have had family dinners like every night where we sit around the dinner table with no phones and we have real conversations. So I think that alone allowed me to be able to be more vulnerable and open when I was going through things. So, it was really nice when I was in college, hundreds of miles from you guys, and I was really going through a hard time. I could call you and I could really feel like I have my family at the end of the day. Like, it's not so bad that I'm so alone. Like, I felt like I always had you guys. But I think with the more challenging aspects were, like you just said, there wasn't a whole lot of conversation about mental health when you guys were growing up.
Right.
This is not something that you guys are used to seeing right in front of your face. And so I think sometimes just there was a lack of understanding. There was a bit of a disconnect when me or Ansley would just be really sad or really anxious or angry or whatever it is. It's hard not to internalize that as a parent, right? So I think that was where, there was some headbutting was, I would be in a certain headspace that's not fun to be around, of course. So that you're going to get in a fight. Like, it's just, these things happen. But I think, I don't know, like that was one thing, like you and I would get into it just because we are so similar and we're very fiery. So that's just what's going to happen. But I think, there was sometimes like just a lack of understanding and sort of a resistance to what's going on. Like, how can I fix this? Like, how can I come to the rescue and immediately, like, what can we do to make you not feel this way? Like, suck it up and go for a run or do this thing. Like, sometimes the best thing that someone needs in those situations is just to be listened to and really feel like they're being seen and heard by the other person, and not like there's this instant need to like protect or solve or whatever. And it's all coming from a good place, but
so for all the dads out there and some of the moms, easier said than done.
Totally.
For me, Latin guy, I'm here to fix it. I'm like, with all transparency, I'm like, wait a minute. I bust my ass. Mom and I have a solid marriage. We do okay. We live in a stable environment. What the fuck is wrong with you? I mean,
right.
Literally that would go through my head is like, why can't you be happy? This is crazy. I'm killing myself. And honestly, it's an ego thing because it's invalidating me as a caregiver and a provider. And, I said, well, what could your mom and I have done better? I think the environment was great. Mm-hmm. But to your point, the environment, maybe that was between the four of us, but social media and all the other stuff and your friends, that has a huge impact. Mm-hmm. And, and I know that we're going to unpack that, but I do want to share with some people, look, I grew up in a ridiculous Disney World, Epcot, just amazing household. Mom and dad married forever and 3 sisters. And, we had everything. We didn't have a lot of money, but we had all the love in the world. And I still have anxiety. So out there in the podcast world, my grandfather had depression. My father went through depression, and I'm on low dose anti-anxiety medications. And actually I realized during the pandemic that something's wrong with me. I was short with people. I'll never forget. And I'm retired. I don't work with them anymore, but I had an old team and we're on a Zoom call and everybody's just talking. And in my mind, I'm like, God, these people are so fucking annoying. And I'm like, these people are great. What is wrong with me? I went out, sat on the porch, was on the swing, and your mom came out and I was crying. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, something's wrong with me. And so I went and I got anti-anxiety medication and I had to practice what I preach. So I told my friends, I'm on anxiety medication. I'm struggling, and they're like, shut up. You're like Mr. Energizer Bunny fun. I'm like, bro, it runs in my family. And that's not an excuse. It just is what it is.
We see time and time again, a lot of the people who seem the best on the outside are really struggling. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at someone like Robin Williams,
Well, sometimes the lights that burn the brightest burn out fast. Mm-hmm. And that broke my heart. He's the greatest comedian of all time.
Seriously.
But you just, and I've preached this to y'all, you don't know what people are going through.
Yeah.
And so we can't judge, and we need to be there for them. So I wanna spice the podcast up a little bit.
All right.
So Crosby, I asked her, I'm like, will you come out here and be honest? And of course you are. That's who you are. And so she's like, well, if I'm going to be honest, are you going to be honest? I'm like, yes, I'll be honest. So she's like, Dad, have you ever been to therapy? And I'm like, so the only time that I really went to therapy was when you were a junior in high school. Mm-hmm. And I was traveling a little bit. And okay, so I come from a Latin household, my dad. And, when my dad said jump, you jumped. And yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, sir, no, ma'am. And that's not quite your generation, and definitely not you when we were growing up. And so there came one day when we were sitting there, and you and I started to get into it, junior year in high school, and I called you a fucking bitch. And your mom and your sister were nowhere to be found. They're hiding.
Oh, as always.
And when we finished the argument, I went in the backyard, and I'm like, what is wrong with me? How can I call one of the things in this world that I love more than life that? Mm-hmm. So I went to a therapist and sat down and told him everything. And he goes, Chuck, you're fine.
Yeah.
And he gave me a book that I'm going to share with the audience. And by the way, I've probably provided this to over 24 people over the last 15 years. And the book is called Yes, Your Teen is Crazy by Dr. Michael Bradley.
Fitting.
Yes. And let me tell you, when your kids are hitting like 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, the book is amazing because it helps you compartmentalize. It has nothing to do with the parent. Mm-hmm. Truly, what we have learned over time is that as a child, until you're like into your early 20s, your synapses have not all connected. You are clinically insane. And as he says early in the book, would you yell at a crazy person? No, you wouldn't yell. Well, then why are you yelling at your kid? Your mom and I would lay in bed and laugh because I bought 2 copies. Yeah. And I'll never forget what happened, Crosby. One day you went up there and looked on my bedstand. What happened?
I was like, what is this book? And why isn't there one for why your parents are crazy?
And my response was, there is a book that he wrote that, yes, your parents are crazy. And I bought it for her. Did you ever read it?
No. I'm 17. You think I'm going to read shit that you give me?
No. So for all the parents out there, if you have kids, you're struggling or you're about to struggle, go on to Amazon. It's less than $20. And it is an amazing book. It helped me. And really and truly, I never went through that again. Mm-hmm. I mean, are there still frustrating parts in time? Of course. But fortunately, that was good. And I don't know if I told you this, and I would like for you to share this with everybody. We assume in healthcare people understand and know everything. Mm-hmm. This whole concept came because you and I went on one of our morning walks with the Mojo Man. That's our dog. And I told you about me and Chris and Os going over to Matio's to play golf.
These are his best friends, everyone.
Yeah, good friends of mine. And so one of them goes, so you're involved with mental health. Is a psychiatrist, because they're all into sports, is a psychiatrist the same as a sports therapist? And I'm like, are you shitting me? And they're like, no, seriously, I don't, and they truly don't understand. Yeah. And so
at least they're asking the questions.
They're asking
That's
the
huge.
question,
yeah.
which was awesome. And so I walked them through, no, a sports psychologist is there to maybe help you with a mental block, maybe help you to achieve greater things. But it's not about, and it could potentially touch on anxiety and things like that. But a psychiatrist or a psychologist.
Yeah, they're all different.
Completely different and focused on different things. And so I was like, you know what? There's a huge need out there. Yeah. That is for the purpose of sports performance in many ways. And you may have anxiety as a pitcher or a quarterback, but it's not the same as, oh my God, I'm a horrible person, or I'm inadequate, or I'm not worthy and struggling. No, you need a professional to handle that.
One thing that I think is really confusing to a lot of people who maybe haven't really ever gone through mental illness, or they don't think they have, but they probably have, is when someone's feeling a certain way and there isn't a specific reason. Like there isn't this thing happened at school and I'm really upset about it. I remember that was something that you really struggled with, with me and Ansley was, what happened? That's always the question, not just from you, but people I've dated, other people who don't have a lot of experience with mental health. Well, what happened? And there's not always a reason, right? Like sometimes with depression, with anxiety, it's just something that's happening in your brain. You're seeing things in a very different way, and you really feel this visceral, physical experience in your chest. Everyone feels it in different places, but for me, it's always been in my chest. I get this really intense tightening of my chest where I feel like I can't breathe in all the way. Like I try to breathe in and I can't get a full breath in. And it sometimes is because of a certain thing, but sometimes I just wake up and that's how I feel. Or I wake up in the middle of the night and that's how I feel. And it can be very frustrating because you're like, what the hell is wrong with me?
Right.
Right? So you start to think you are crazy. But the reality is like, this is just how it is. That's what generalized anxiety disorder is, or generalized depression is. It's sort of just this thing that you're struggling with, and you go through seasons of it. So, for me, like when I was really in the depths of my anxiety, I would have a week where I felt great. I really felt like I had a good routine and I wasn't having any issues. And then the next week I would have 3 panic attacks. I remember the first time I ever had a panic attack, I thought I was dying, right? You don't know what's happening half the time. When you're going through this for the first time, it's very scary. Like a lot of people who have panic attacks think they're having a heart attack. They think they're going to pass out. And you don't realize that this is all happening in your mind, but it is manifesting physically in your body. So, that's something that I think more people than we realize experience. And either they don't talk about it or they kind of gaslight themselves as to like, oh, like it wasn't that big of a deal or whatever it is. But, for me, it just got to a breaking point where I could not function. Like if I had any break, like I would fill my days. Like I would get up at 6 a.m. I would work out, work all day, go to class, go to the gym for 3 hours. Then I would, work on my business all through the night. And if I had any break in that, I would have a panic attack because my brain, like I needed to distract myself at all costs, right? So that's just something, and I went through that for years and years, and so many people go through something similar, whether it's with anxiety or depression, bipolar disorder, whatever it is. And I think like the most important thing, I don't even remember what you asked me, but I just think the most important thing is to recognize that whether or not you understand what is happening to yourself or to someone that you really care about, the fact of the matter is that it is happening. And the worst thing you can do is invalidate that and say, oh, I shouldn't be feeling like this, or you shouldn't feel like this. Like you have everything. You have such a great life and you have straight A's and you have this great job. You have a boyfriend. You're blah. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like the people who sometimes look like they have it all are still really going through it. And that's the conversation that needs to be had, and just the understanding and the compassion that we need to exercise for ourselves and for the people that we love. And that will make a world of difference. It's just not like taking the I shouldn't feel like this or you shouldn't feel like this out of the equation. It's happening, right? So let's accept that it's happening and move forward, right?
So it's interesting that you say that because, I'm sitting here and, I do think that our way through this is through empathy and non-judgment.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people out there, and myself at times, that are like, what the fuck? That's stupid. How can that? Oh, really? You have a visceral reaction that's physical. Okay, so real quick, if you're thinking that, you're a fucking idiot, okay? I'm just going to say it right now, and you're part of the problem. Because, look, if at the end of the day, what's important? We love each other, and we want each other to be happy. And we don't walk in each other's shoes. I said to you earlier, what about, what did we do right or what did we do wrong? Look, social media. I mean, I was talking to Roya, a couple of weeks ago, and like I told her, I'm like, what sucks? It's like if you're a kid today and it's Friday night and you're in high school and you're insecure and all your friends say, no, there's nothing going on. And then, so you stay home with your parents and you're watching a movie, and of course you have your freaking phone and you see on Instagram that they're out at a party.
Yeah.
When I grew up, we didn't have phones. And so I didn't know till Monday.
Or maybe never found out.
Or never found out.
Yeah.
And you didn't have that whole time to go, oh my God, why do they hate me?
Yeah.
I'm such a loser. And, you know, our society, I mean, and all the stuff that's happening right now, you know, if there's anybody out there that hears this and goes like, you know, this is bullshit, we have an epidemic. And part of the epidemic is us ignoring this and not just saying, how can I help?
Tell me more.
Tell me more. Help me understand.
Yeah.
Just because we don't understand doesn't mean it's wrong or it's not happening. Yeah. So talk to me real quick about your generation and social media and 24/7 news cycles and all this shit going on.
Yeah.
I don't even know how you'll process this.
I know. I mean, I remember the first time I ever made an Instagram, and I was in 7th grade. So I was 12 or 13, I guess. And, you know, that even is like, there are kids that are on social media now at pre-10 years old, like, which is wild. But yeah, I just think there's so many ways that this is influencing young people that we have no idea the real implications of yet, because it's still so new, right?
Right.
But the things that I am seeing, what I've gone through myself and what I see my friends or, you know, my cousins, my sister, you know, people, is number one, for girls specifically, and I'm sure for guys as well, but for girls, in my experience, there's a lot of comparison that happens with social media, right? So, you know, I talked about when I was 12 and I'm living in Atlanta, and I look back at pictures of myself and I was such a little ugly duckling, and it was cute. But like, if I had social media, like I look at 12-year-olds now and they look like they're 16 half the time because they have TikTok, they have Instagram, they're looking at these girls, they see sort of, oh, this is the ideal version of beauty. I don't look like that. I don't have hair like that or skin like that, or, you know, I'm not skinny like her, or whatever it is. And from a very young age, you become way too aware of your physical appearance. You start to pick yourself apart at a very young age. And just the comparison it's almost impossible to avoid if you're on social media. So I think it's so important to, you know, for the young kids on social media, if you're raising them or if you're, you know, have them in your life, just saying, this is not real, right? There's filters. It's not real.
It's not real.
It's not real. And that it's true, right? This is a highlight reel. This is, people edit their face, people edit their body, and not just that, but people are picking the best parts of their month and posting that. You're not seeing, you know, when they were crying for 3 hours in their bed because they felt lonely or whatever it is. Like,
you show that on your videos.
Yeah, I try to, right? Like, it's not all rainbows and
you look
sunshine.
like hell in Vietnam in that one video.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I gotta do this. But no, I mean, it's definitely hard, I think, to grow up with social media. And, you know, not the comparison is one thing, but then of course seeing people who they're hanging out with and sort of that side of things. Oh, I'm being left out. I mean, you already feel like that. You're so insecure at that age, especially in middle and high school. So to have the added layer of social media, I feel like I even had it easy. The younger kids coming up in this, I really like, yeah.
Well, I do think that when y'all become parents, the kids that grew up with social media, I think that y'all will know how to manage it better than we do.
Oh, I see it already. We are all, I mean, the conversations I have with my friends is like, we're going to be super strict about social media with our kids, have very strict boundaries with it, have very honest and open conversation about media literacy and how social media is fake, it's a highlight reel, all this kinds of things. It's so important. But I mean, this world, the social media world is changing so rapidly. So who knows what it's going to look like in 10 years?
But I will say that I think that social media came on the scene when you were a child and I was a parent.
Yeah.
And neither of us knew what to do with it. It's a brand new toy. It's very cool. Oh my God, the world just opened up to us. And we had no idea what could be the impact of that, both positive and negative.
Yeah.
And I think that your generation has a much better grasp on what is the impact and how to manage it better. And so, you know, you're talking a lot, and I know I want to be careful here, not to generalize, but you're a girl.
Yeah.
And boys deal with the same thing.
Totally.
Now I'm going to try and transport myself back and go, okay, if I was a guy and I was growing up, I'm not going to, I really don't think that I'd be like, oh my God, that guy's hair looks so good. Because guys are just different. But I could look at it and go, oh my God, that guy, he's got muscles or he's super athletic and I'm not. And, for those parents out there that have boys, it's really hard because, like it or not, and I don't know, sometimes on this podcast, I'm probably going to get myself in trouble. But, boys are raised so you got to be strong and you got to be alpha and you got to be this and you got to be that. Not always by their parents, but by society.
And the media and what they see
in the media,
movies.
which I freaking hate. But at the end of the day, boys just shut down. Girls at least communicate.
Right.
And if you really give them an opportunity, I think that girls are more apt to share how they feel. I think boys are still afraid to show weakness and to share that. They're just going to shut down and go in their room. And God knows, but with their phone and social media, who they're going to talk to, who's going to message them. And then they have these stupid freaking games that are super violent. And, and your mom always brings up that she gets nervous for boys because we're erratic. I mean, we do stupid shit. Sometimes stupid shit that really there's no coming back from. So, I just think that whether you have a son or a daughter or a brother or a sister or an aunt or an uncle, you need to just sit down and talk to them.
Check in with them.
And just say, how you feeling and why? And I'm here. And I have to take my own medicine and say, I don't think I can fix it because there's no way you can fix it. How you can fix it is listen.
Yeah.
And don't talk too much.
That's huge. I mean, I think, when what you were saying about boys shutting down, of course, we're generalizing big time here. I will say I do see the men who are my age and growing up, I do think that things are starting to shift in terms of, men and boys being able to open up and knowing that it is okay. And, we're trying to encourage it. I'm trying to encourage it because it's just so much better for everybody, right? I just think, creating a culture of dialogue like we talked about early on and letting boys and girls know that they can come to you. You're not going to judge them. It is okay to be going through something and that you're not necessarily going to immediately try and fix the problem. You're just there to listen and support them no matter what. That is huge. And I know it can be difficult even for me and people I've dated. Like it's hard sometimes when you're really going through something very, very difficult emotionally. It's hard for that other person to literally just sit there and not try to make you feel better. Because it can be so uncomfortable when someone is like crying to you and you're trying to rack your brain for the solutions when what you should be doing
and there's no solution
is listening to them. There might be a solution, but that's not what you need to think about yet. We'll think about solutions tomorrow. Right now, this person in front of you is struggling and they are really needing your support and they need you to hear them, and they'll be able to tell if you're actually listening to them or if you're in your head thinking, how can I make them feel better? How can I make them stop crying because I feel uncomfortable? That's the challenge. It's challenging.
Well, I'll tell you, and you just gave me an epiphany, and this is why I love having daughters in their 20s, because you guys teach me so much shit. But I think one of the biggest challenges for parents, and you tell me if this is wrong, you both want to be the hero. You both want to save your kid. Am I wrong to assume that probably one of the worst things is for both parents to sit down with the kid and go, hey, is everything okay? As a kid, I would think that would be super freaking intimidating.
Yeah.
I would think that as parents, put your ego aside. I never did this, by the way. And go, no, I did. I'd go, I can't deal with this shit. You go deal with this shit. So it wasn't about ego. It was about frustration. I'm like, I am not a girl. I can't think like them.
They're so emotional. They're hormones.
Deal with it. And I'm
Shark Week.
I'm an emotional guy. Oh, Shark Week. Holy shit. I can't believe you just said that on the air. I think that as parents, talk to each other.
Yeah. Put
the ego aside and go, one of us. Who connects better with that kid? And let that parent go and talk to him. I also think for the dads out there, I look back on my childhood, I always went to my mom. I always went to Marmy. Papa was great, But my dad he was the most amazing dad in the world. And I can say this because he's my hero, my best man in my wedding, all that kind of stuff. But he had a huge temper, and I never wanted to disappoint him. So I wouldn't go tell Dad something's wrong. So you need to find that parent that you connect with and go on a walk, or that parent that connects. Both parents don't go there.
Or an aunt or an uncle or a friend.
Or uncle or someone who you relate to, someone who you will open up to. And I think that's one of the things that parents can do. And I'm not a therapist or a professional. I'm giving you advice as a dad has gone through all this stuff. I definitely think don't do the double team. That's never going to work in my opinion. But I do think, and I think with the dads, especially with the boys, show your vulnerability.
Yes.
Show your vulnerability. I went through stuff myself. If I have a grandson and he has issues, I'd go, your great grandfather, your grandfather, and I, or even more than that, it's in the gene pool. You can't swim out of your gene pool. It is what it is. And the 24/7 media doesn't help. And all the vitriol and the social media and the comparisons, none of that help. And let them know you're not weak. Nothing's wrong with you. This is life, and I'm here.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's huge. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of things that we can do, I think, these days. Like, it does seem like it's all doom and gloom but I never thought that I would get to a point where I could manage my anxiety without medication and without distracting myself 24/7, but I have gotten to a point now for the last few years where I'm so content, and I do go to therapy. I go usually twice a month, and it's been incredible. And yeah, that along with just the lifestyle changes that I've made and the perspective that I have now, I'm 27, so I've had now, it's been 13, 14 years of me having to figure out how to manage this. And sometimes it's really not easy, but I think things for me, like taking time where I leave my phone at the house and I go outside and I have time in nature to be present, to turn off my brain for a minute, to connect with people that I love, because I think, we don't realize how much we're on our phone and how distracted we are. And that can really take away from what life is all about. And we might feel like we're so lonely or we're so unfulfilled. Just turn the phone off. And it might feel uncomfortable at first because we're all addicted to our phones. I totally am one of those people. But just getting comfortable with being with your own thoughts again it's very important, I think. And also just being able to connect with the people around you is huge, and not constantly being inundated with, photos of people in war and all of the things that are happening throughout the world. Like, we're not supposed to be seeing this amount of stuff. Our brains are not wired for the level of input, good and bad, that's coming from TikTok, from Instagram, from all of these social media platforms. So we have to really set those boundaries for ourselves, because those social media platforms, they want you to scroll. It's good for business. We are, so we have to set those boundaries. It makes a huge difference.
Well, I told someone a while back, our brains have not evolved as quickly as technology. And so we cannot take all of that. And, you've mentioned medications, and I do think, we don't want to always lean on medication.
Yeah.
But sometimes we just have a chemical imbalance.
Yep.
And so just, do all the other things, but you may need that as well. But the other thing, we talked about therapists, and I think having someone, it doesn't have to be a professional therapist. Some people may need that, but if you have a good friend, I'll never forget when in my mid-late 30s, man, Mez and I, when we were training for triathlons and marathons, we used to joke that we saved thousands of dollars on therapy by jogging with each other and bitching and moaning and telling each other's you're okay, blah, 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 blah. It could be a friend. It could be a family member. It could, whatever. We need to be able to talk it out and get it off our chest and have a support system. And if we can do that, I think we can make the world a hell of a lot better place.
Totally. There is something to be said about community and having that. That's huge. I do think, though, therapy, it is different than talking to a friend or a family member, because they're completely unbiased. Your friend is going to have preconceived notions of who you are. If they've known you for years, they're going to kind of be, oh, well, what about this? Or you may feel like a little bit of, you're afraid that you're going to be judged. You know, if you're going to a therapist, this person does not know you. They don't know anyone in your life. They are completely objective for the most part. Sometimes there's some bad.
I hate when my daughter's smarter than me.
That's what I do. That's why I'm
I
here.
know. I know. Well, you just
Yeah.
made me think of something.
Yeah.
And so that was my old school coming out going, you just need a friend.
Well, it is helpful, but
It is
you
helpful.
can have both.
but if you're in a place, so I love the analogy that you made between a physical therapist and a mental therapist. So give that analogy, because I think that like old farts like me and people who don't really get it can understand.
Yeah, I mean, I think one way that I like to explain to people who maybe are really against therapy or have that old school negative association with therapy, oh, you know, the crazy people go to shrinks and all this stuff. You know, if let's say you twist your ankle, or I got plantar fasciitis in my foot, and I'm trying to go on this big hike, so I go to a sports therapist or a physical therapist, and they give me a bunch of exercises that I need to do. I explain my situation, they hear me out, they give me a bunch of exercises to do, and I do them every single day. I tape up my foot, etc. Going to a therapist is the same thing, just for your mind. And that's really all it is. You're talking to someone. It's not like you're going to be sitting there sobbing your eyes out all day. Like, if I cry in therapy, I'm like, whoa. Like, I will, but for the most part, you're going in there to become a better version of yourself, to have better relationships. Like, sometimes you're not necessarily always diving into, like, the trauma of your childhood, but, you know, maybe you have a difficult relationship with your friend or your mom or whatever it is, and you know, you don't want to always go talk to someone who knows your mom or knows your friend. So you're going to this person who is a professional and understands relationships, understands dynamics that can happen, and can give you really solid, objective advice. And it's huge. You just have to be open to it, because I resisted therapy forever.
Right.
You know, and you can't force someone to go to therapy. Like, you can't. I've tried. It doesn't work.
Absolutely.
We've all tried, probably, with some people in our lives.
And a quick shout out, great show on therapy called Shrinking on Apple.
So good.
So good. Oh my God, make you laugh, make you cry a little bit too. It's great. I'm going to give a couple real quick things before we wrap up. Dads, parents, people who don't understand this, a couple key things that I've said a number of times to my kids, all wrong, is things like, oh, it'll all be fine. It'll be okay. Don't say that, even though it probably will. And my favorite, what is wrong with you? Kids in Africa are starving. You have everything. You should be fine. Okay, so all the people out there going, you're an idiot, okay? A lot of us idiots are out there. I was doing the best I can. I'm evolving from caveman to maybe what's that show called?
Neanderthal.
Mad Men. So I'm not quite to the 20th century. But I want to thank you, because, you know, you, me, your sister, your mom, we've been on this journey, and we're all in it together, and not just our family, but our friends and our extended family. And now we're trying to reach other people, some who we maybe don't even know. And part of us being able to help each other is to open up and to go, you know what? Those people they look like they got everything.
Totally.
And they're struggling too every freaking day.
Yeah.
And you are one tragedy from someone you know from maybe going down a bad path. And we just all need to stay aware and look out for each other and take care of each other. Crosby, I love you so much. You guys are my world. Thank you for coming on here and sharing everything.
Well, I love you too.
Take care.
I'm very honored. Cheers.
Cheers.